Hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder of Mighty Blaze, which started when the pandemic did. Our purpose was and is to help indie bookstores and all bookstores really, to help readers connect with writers and to help writers promote their books in any way they can. And also most more than that, to have fun, to have fun. So today we have somebody very special. I want to show you the book, which is covered in Post-its because there were so many lines that I loved. Oh, this should be mirrored, and it's not. It's Fast Fallen Women, 75 Essays of Flash Nonfiction by the amazing Gina Barreca. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to talk to her. And I'm telling you, it's going to be so many laughs. You better have smelling salts near you. Gina Barreca is the author of 10 books, including the best-selling, you're going to laugh, They Used to Call Me Snow White, But I Drifted, Boys in Boyland, A Personal History of Co-Education in the Ivy League, Sweet Revenge, The Wicked Delights of Getting Easy, and It's Not That I'm Bitter, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying About Visible Panty Lines and Conquered the World. She's been translated into several languages, including Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, German, and Portuguese. She's edited 17 collections, including the Book of Women's Humor and the Signet Book of American Humor. She's a Board of Trustees, Distinguished Professor of English Literature at the University of Connecticut. She's written regularly for the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, Cosmopolitan, Ms., the Chronicle of Education. She was deemed a feminist humor maven by Ms., called Smart and Funny by People magazine. She's appeared often, repeatedly, on CNN, Today, NPR, Oprah, and Good Morning America. And she's lectured worldwide on gender, power, and troublemaking. I want to read you some of the praise for Gina about this particular book. Barreca is a sharp analyst of women's humor, observant, witty, acerbic, and knowledgeable. LA Times. You can count on Gina for essays that are fun, feminist, and provocative. Roz Warren in Women's Voices for Change. Barreca is an unfailingly winning narrator. Publishers Weekly and from Chicago Tribune. Barreca learned to do what any sassy smarty pants, don't you love that, would do: challenge, steal ideas, and press buttons. So I want to give a little introduction to Fast Fallen Women. Gina does these amazing anthologies, and what she does is she gets the meat of issues. Fast Fallen Women is 75 new essays about the discoveries and enthralling ways that women fall and fail, except they don't fail because they get right back up. It's about the other woman. It's about embarrassing yourself, but you're not really. It's about all sorts of things. So sorry, I have a dry throat because we have no air conditioning here. She's got new and original works by, look at this roster. These are all the people who love Gina, as I do. Amy Tan, Jane Smiley, Bobby Ann Mason, Anna Moore, Eileen Beckerman, and Gina herself. It's absolutely groundbreaking. So, Gina, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being in the book. Yours is...
Oh, of course. I had to be. I would have been like, Gina's written, I don't have a list of her books, all her Fast Fallen Women.
This is the really third. This is the third of the...
This is the third. Fast Funny Women. Fast Funny Women. What was the second one?
Fast Fierce Women.
Fast Fierce Women, right. Fast Fallen Women. And there's a new one coming up too.
For next year, we're going to do Fast Famous Women.
Famous Women. And I am so thrilled that I'm in all of them, because if I wasn't, I'd have to go to Gina's house and insist on it. Okay, so I want to talk about this book because it's astonishing. First thing I want to say is, we all love bad girls, don't we? Why do you think that is? Is it because we've all been brought up to be nice, that odious word?
I think that that's part of it. I think that because without a bad girl in the story, there's no story. right? I mean, Margaret Atwood has that great essay that you probably read called Spotted Villainesses. And it's about how usually that it is the driving force behind a narrative is the bad girl, is the
Right.
bad woman, is the fallen woman. And this goes back to Eve. I mean, without Eve, there's no story. I mean, we'd all sitting there, be looking at the apple, I mean, and actually the proof that God is a man, people have come up to me and said, as a feminist, don't you think God is a woman? And I was like, absolutely not. Because a woman would not say diet, which is the first word out of God's mouth, is don't eat this. No.
That's right. That's right.
God would say, eat the apple. It's got fiber. You can make it into a pie. It'll clean your teeth. It'll be the first thing a male God says is don't eat that.
And that's right. Also, the first thing a female God would say is check out Adam.
It would have been okay for women to pee everywhere. So
that's right.
All of these things. But anyway, the stories that we have about women's lives, whether they're written about women or written by women or written by men, are about bad girls. I mean, Emma Bovary, Anna Karenina, Lily Bart. I mean, all of the big female characters who occupy our imagination, Scarlett O'Hara, they're the bad girls. They're the ones who are the rule breakers, because fallen women are the women in motion. They're the ones moving from one place to another. And so all of the books have been for Woodhull Press, have been fun to put together. But fallen women, there are so many definitions of fallen women, whether it has to do with sex, whether it has to do with literally falling. Amy Tan gives us a list of how to avoid falling, including the great line, which has so many metaphorical implications, lift your hem. I love
right. I love that.
It'd be like on a t-shirt, lift your hem.
Yep.
I think that, Honor Moore's one about, again, sort of getting to sort of other women territory, doing it at a distance, but, does this always damage a relationship? Is is something poisoned by its origins? Can a bad girl change? Can a good girl change? Amy Hartle Sherman talks about how her family was full of engineers and all these people who went to Cornell, and Amy decided what she wanted to do the minute she got out of college was to become a stewardess, to become a flight attendant.
Oh, God.
And that she, her family sort of regarded this as like being a fallen woman. It's not,
of course,
academic path, but her rising into the air was her method of falling. And she tells great stories about traveling around the world as this young woman and owning everything. It's one of there's Amy. Hi, Amy. But it's one of the great essays. There's a friend of mine from high school who was one of the founders. I want to take a rib, right? One of the founders or one of the original members of Dykes on Bikes. We were friends in 8th grade, and she decided her family had died, basically, and I lost my mother young was one of the reasons Morna and I were friends. And she and another friend had never been on motorcycles, and at 19 or 20, they said, okay, let's ride across the country. And not knowing anything, they took off. And she talks about a woman riding a motorcycle alone, and that she found doing this on her own, this enormous sense of community, and not a sense of danger, but a sense of being welcomed as somebody who in all these ways didn't fit into what the good girl was supposed to be. But there she is, like Amy up in the sky. There's Mana riding the highways. And, and there's Susan Cassett, or Cassett, I think it's Cassett, right? Susan, tell me if I'm doing it right. And who is a poet and a writer and works out, because all writers we know, and this is something we should talk about too, Caroline, is they have day jobs. Most writers have day jobs.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Susan writes to another version of herself. and what she could have learned, should have learned, maybe didn't learn, that worked out because she is who she becomes. And so there are so many ways that these writers have approached it. So one of the great things about doing the books, as you mentioned, is that these well-known writers who have been on, New York Times bestseller lists, like you, right, Caroline? New York Times bestseller we have, but are right along the side of people who, no matter what ages, some of them are 20 and have not seen their work in print before, and some of them are close to 90 and haven't seen their work in in a book with an ISBN number in it. So putting emerging writers from whatever backgrounds next to writers who've done the routine for a very long time in different arenas has been one of the fun parts of. I see these as really big dinner parties, and just like real dinner parties, there's a seat for everybody, and there's enough to go around, and there are some women laughing hilariously and drinking in the corner, and there's another small group crying on the veranda. On the bed, going, oh my God, I can't believe that. But everybody's welcome, and you find your little cluster.
You find your cluster. I want to read something that is in the introduction that I absolutely loved. I even put like a red poster on it. Okay, think of this collection of essays as a companion. Fallen women are often used as object lessons, as the subject of a tutorial on how not to become her. This book is no such tutorial. Instead, it is a celebration. Embrace the fall. I absolutely love that, because I'm sure you would agree, and I'm sure everybody out there would agree too. When you think of the times that you felt you were, quote unquote, fallen, or the other woman, or whatever, when you think about it years from now, from when it happened, don't you feel a sense of pride? I mean, I do.
I mean, there's a satisfaction in not having stayed in a place that you weren't supposed to be.
Right.
Not
exactly.
having stayed in the bad first marriage. Saying like, no, I was not chained to a radiator. It was not the horrific thing that some people had to go through, but it wasn't the place I was supposed to be. And something gave me the courage to do it. I was the first person in my family to get divorced. And I went to my father and said, Dad, like, I'm getting divorced. And I didn't know what he was going to say. He said, what took you so long?
Wow.
Great. Oh, yeah. He had been waiting for this to happen. And how much forgiveness and acceptance and generosity was there in just saying that, and there are women writing about asking, their mothers finding out that they're sleeping with their boyfriends, and the mother saying, well, I don't know if I should pray for you anymore. There are women who are saying, are you going to excommunicate me? I mean, there are literal, arguments about prayer and the church and God.
Right.
And there are women falling off cliffs. Pamela Katz, screenwriter, falling off a cliff as a teenager, and deciding whether this is what she was supposed to do.
That's right. I also want to talk about, there was another really interesting thing in your essay about the fallen woman, which is written sort of as a conversation. And what's so interesting is it actually brings community, because everybody thinks, well, the fallen woman, screw her, or she ruined my marriage, or this guy's never going to. And it's sort of like, you might think you've never met the other woman, but you have. Or you might think you're never going to be the other woman, but you have been. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like all of these things that we call fallen. Would you say that those are part of the human condition, especially for women?
Absolutely. Well, anytime a woman opens her mouth, she's already seditious, right?
Yeah.
Anytime we express something that's not a cooing noise, then we're already outrageous, we're already unacceptable, we're already tossed out of whatever chamber of sanctity we're supposed to have. So that, yes, we're just like, I'll never do that. Or it's the women.
Wait.
Or the women who say, oh my God, when I turn 40, I'm never going to dress like a old lady. I'm never going to be over 112 pounds. I don't care what. As it's like, what are you, out of your mind? This is like, is that what they're going to say? Like on your headstone, is she just ate rice cakes? I mean, is that because there are people who think they're fallen if, again, they're over size 14? They think they're it doesn't take anything to make us and we're, of course, as you know, mostly the harshest judges for ourselves, except for the church, the court, employers who won't accept women's work as equal to men's work, except for every other institution in the world. But we don't help ourselves, which is one of the reasons why telling all of our stories together is useful, to go, oh, you did that too. Oh, huh. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So let's bring the conversation back to the male of the species. Men can be criminal, like Woody Allen, Kevin Spacey, all this kind of, but they're not really fallen. How come they get a pass? They go to jail, but they're not fallen the way women are. Is it from historical views on what women are, what they should be? How come we don't have fallen men?
How come we don't? Because it is the fall of man that we have to deal with, right? Because that was the idea. And of course, man only fell because of woman. He never would have done it on his own. And so that, like, in Milton, not for nothing, but if you go back to Paradise Lost, my favorite holiday reading.
Paradise Lost.
You go. So, I mean, you've got, Milton says it's he for God and she for God in him. So we're supposed to mediate our relationship with the ineffable through the masculine. And so that guys get like, yeah, it's like, we'll let him go. It's fine. He has a direct relationship with the guys in power.
Right.
And women right. Look at Job. Right? I mean, Job is, God and Satan have nothing to do on a weekend, and they make a bet over will Job pray God, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys who needed another job, maybe, like, I don't know, curing the sick or something. So he takes, what's the first thing he does? He takes away Job's children and his wife, beloved. Right. And then when everything's fine and Job doesn't give up God gives him a new wife and new kids. We're absolutely replaceable. We are absolutely replaceable. That's and right. A newer version, a younger version, we're like the trade-ins at a car. Right? No, this one's got airbags. This is fine. She'll be better than the last one. But we're absolutely replaceable. So no, women fall because it goes back to, again, in the dedication, I said, for every woman who lost her virginity but kept the box it came in, that it was supposed to be, your hymen. The hymen is the one non-regenerative organ. Right. Although now women go into hymen places, I mean, so that once you gave that up and then gave up the way that inherited land and property worked, you were dangerous.
That's right. That's right. Well, women is danger. I saw a post of yours on Facebook, but I'm probably mispronouncing it. Kenahora.
Kenahora.
Okay. The fear of the future and how women go about grappling with that. And somebody remarked, is there also a fear of happiness mixed up in that? Yeah. In terms of rules that women are supposed to play by? Please talk about that.
I think that women are terrified. I mean, I am terrified of happiness. I think it's not just women, but it's mostly women that are encouraged to be fearful because it's part of femininity, right?
And it's part of keeping you in place. Exactly. You're fearful, you won't stray.
Right. It's sort of like wearing one of those electronic collars, except we self-install them where we don't go out of our own yard. Right. So that the end of The Wizard of Oz and the end of every I Love Lucy is there's no place like home. Right. Lucy goes to be a chorus girl. She wants to sell vitamin Vegemin. She wants to work in the candy factory, but she has to end up in that apartment on the Upper East Side. Right. So and then there's Dorothy, who says, Kansas is really good. But the idea is that we're never supposed to stray, both literally and figuratively, right? We're supposed to stay in the same place that we're put because we're objects, and objects don't move themselves. Right. So when an object moves itself, that's dangerous. An object has, in our women's studies courses from the 70s, we learned that you have the agency. Now it makes it sound like I'm selling real estate, but it's the idea that you get to make decisions for yourself. And that's terrifying, because if you do that, as I say in the introduction, the thing about taking blame is that it's taking responsibility. So if you understand that you're responsible for your own happiness, that's taking a lot of responsibility. You can't blame other people. If you understand that this is up to you, then you better go and do it, honey, because life being short and all,
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about what we should be teaching our daughters or our nieces or the young girls that were growing up about, that whole notion of being a good girl that I'm really hoping we can do away with fast. How do we, when can we start talking about maybe being a good person instead of a good girl?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's true for the young men. I mean, you have a son, I have two stepsons. I have a lot of young men in my classes, as well as young women. And I think it is being a good person. But what are the differences? When we say he's a good man, right? He's a good man. That means that he is out there. He is active in the world in a way he takes responsibility. He does for others, but he does for others in a way that is out there and visible in the community. And she's a good woman. I mean, for me, it's the lady from Contadina with the escarole over her shoulder, with 17 children attached to the bottom of her skirt. She lives in obscurity. She does only for those she loves. She is not supposed to expect appreciation, recognition, visibility in any way. And I see
That's sad.
Right? What do you think about the Barbie movie? I loved the Barbie movie. I saw it twice. And I really did. I got my Barbie behind me. I have my Barbie.
Yeah, my Barbie's on my shelf over there.
Yeah, and I also have my Barbie in the back. Is my Barbie of from the Birds, right? Where I thought she's being attacked. It's what's her name, Tippi Hedren. By the Birds. I thought it was like an NEH exhibition. It's actually a vintage Barbie.
How does Barbie relate to your book?
Barbie
Fallen Women.
Exactly. But it does. I think Barbie is a fallen woman, especially in this book. First of all, she gets a vagina at the end. That is what made the conservative movement so mad, is that she gets a vagina at the end. It's like, how can I take my daughter to see this movie? It's like, your daughter's already.
Your daughter has a vagina. I know. Go take her.
That's what you can't stand, is that she has one of those already. But it really is America for America. How do we say her last name? Ferrara's great monologue about women's power is fabulous. And the idea of not, giving up on the idea of women's ambition. And not settling for Will Ferrell's definition of, when I think of sparkle, I think of women's power. It's like, we had a woman CEO once. Wasn't that back in the 90s? We had one of those. And that's like the idea of, you get one of somebody. You get a woman, you get a person of color, you get a non-gender conforming person, you get somebody who is not, abled in the way other people are. We got one of those. As opposed to, we have a lot of different kinds of people. Not that you get a little bit, like you got one woman so that you get inoculated against having to get other women.
Right.
And I think that's what the Barbie thing was about. I also, of course, I love Ryan Gosling, but I thought when he goes up to the guy and says, I don't think you're doing patriarchy right. And the guy says, oh, we're doing it better than ever.
Yeah.
Because they're not seeing it as much anymore. I thought that was, again, one of the most insurgent, unnerving, great lines that you could say. Oh, we're the patriarchy. Nobody has to worry about that.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah. We looked at the Supreme Court lately. Yeah, we're not worrying about that. Yeah. Not that I'm bitter. But so yeah, I thought Barbie was hilarious. I really did. I thought it
I
was
haven't
really.
seen it yet, but I love
Oh,
Barbie.
I'll go
No,
with you.
I know. Bad, bad, bad. But I
Yeah,
am. I'm waiting for it. I can't wait to because I love Barbie. I loved Barbie when I was a little girl. I love her now.
I did too.
She's an icon, and I love the idea of the movie. Okay, so I want to know, and we've talked about this before, why, times are so tough now. Why is comedy now so super important?
I think because comedy allows us to say the things that we otherwise are supposed to be ashamed of saying, right?
Yeah,
You can say the best comedy from Aristophanes onwards has always been about, it's really always been obscene. It's what you can't say on stage, right? That's
right.
literally what obscene means. And you can't do it on stage. And so, but it puts light in the stuff that's shadowed. And Amy says, why is America so far behind in electing women leaders? Is because we're terrified of women. America's terrified of women. We can't, the idea of equity seems unjust in the American system. I think that we really are, the idea of fiscal autonomy, of women making equal pay for equal work. And you hear women arguing against this. And that's the part that breaks my heart. And when again, when Caroline, you asked about, what do we need the young women in our lives and the young men in our lives to understand, it's that this is not a fight that's over, that rights that have been won are never rights that are safe. They need to be continuously defended. And if we're going to take away a woman's right to choose what happens to her own body, they're going to come for a lot of things next. I mean, they're going to come for contraception. They're going to come for all kinds of things are going to be questioned, and that we have, in a way, made it seem as if we've done a better job of making these rights stable than they have been. If they can overturn Roe v. Wade, things are not safe. And so that we do need to get out and vote. We do need to make these things public, and not to say, well, it's my girlish way of looking at things. I happen to like babies. This has nothing to do, whether or not an 11-year-old who's pregnant by rape has to cross state lines to be able to terminate a pregnancy is not really whether you like babies. And so all of these arguments get so muddled to people who don't want to bother thinking about the implications of them.
And they also don't want to bother thinking about what if it's their daughter.
Right.
What if it's their daughter?
The rich have always.
Really?
The
I
rich
know. I know. And it just sort of boggles my mind, because it really seems to me like it's fair.
Yeah.
And it's been there since the beginning of time. Right. People are afraid of women. Women have this weird power, they think, and they need to destroy it or subjugate it or destroy it. And it's just so weird. So I want to talk about you, because you're the epitome of a strong, funny woman. You're curious, empathetic. You somehow just shine, and I adore that about you. So were you a funny kid? When did you first realize that humor was your superpower?
I think when I realized that it was the only way to get anybody in my immediate family of 117 to listen to me. It was the same way that I realized that I had to, my brother feels the same way, like you had to put as much food into your mouth as possible, and we all ate like gerbils, because if you didn't eat that, there would be some relative who would swoop down going, are you going to finish that? And you would lose, the brachol or the cannoli or whatever. If you didn't put it into your mouth before someone else could take it. And the same thing with being heard. There was you had to be funny and get a line in sideways. And that way you might get somebody to respond. And the thing is, if somebody laughed, this. And it's the same thing. You just have doing it on a page is a more interesting sort of trick to play in a way, because you have to assume your audience, their responses. That if somebody laughs with you, you've reached them. However briefly, even if they don't continue to agree with you, but for that moment, you have them. You're standing in the same perspective. You're seeing each other from the same place, you know? And often you see women, we still do it. If somebody makes you laugh, you cover your mouth. It's
That's
like,
right. That's
you
right.
know,
That's right. That's right. That's right.
almost, almost never do you see a guy cover his mouth when he laughs, right?
That's right. They don't. They open their mouth wide and they spit their food.
Right, exactly right. I got to spit some tobacco and then go.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We've got a great question from Susan. How do you think this book can help affect change?
Lovely question.
I
I
think a
think
lot.
that, yeah, I mean, well, Carolyn, I've got my answer. What's yours to this?
I definitely think it can, because it's sort of like, first of all, it makes you feel I'm not alone. Second of all, in hearing other women bravely and without apology say, yeah, I did this, I had an affair, and explain why and what happened and how they grew from this or how they didn't grow from this, makes you feel like your choices are all right. I loved reading these essays because I felt empowered by them. You know, it's like everyone, the worst thing somebody did in these essays, the more I like that person. No, not because they did something bad, but it's like what Amy said. It's like the moment of connection.
Right.
I felt, okay, yes, and also this person is being honest.
Yeah.
People are not always honest. They don't. One thing I found, that when you're authentic, like really authentic, then you tell the truth about yourself, and it's not just repackaged or repurposed so people will like it. It's like who you really are, and that includes the bad stuff too, and why you did it. And that, I think, is really, really powerful. And Amy said we're rooting for all the women in the book. We are.
Yeah.
We certainly are. We want to say like, oh, that's nothing. This is what I did.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. And that there is this sense of community, and that we're not, again, every once in a while, mostly when I need to hear it, to be honest.
Right.
I put up a line that just says, you're not nuts and you're not alone. I just put it up this way. And it's astonishing how many people is like, how did you know I needed to hear that today? And it's like, because I needed to hear it. And I figure if I needed to hear this, somebody else does. I am not that original. I'm not. I mean, what I'm feeling, other people are feeling. I am not. And so that I figured that, again, for most women, these are, the whispered conversations. These are like, oh, you did that too. That this is, it's the thing to then find out that women, that are kind, that are smart, that are generous, that are sweet, that are giving, that are legitimate, that are happily married, that have good friends, or that aren't married, or that don't have friends, or that suffered through poverty and made it to the other side, or who never owned something and then got something, and that everybody feels like a fake and a thief and a whatever. But that's because others have made us feel that way.
That's right. And we have to be authentic. I wanted to ask you if you could talk about the age appropriateness of being fallen, because I can remember, and I bet you do too. Remember in high school or junior high, they'd passed around this list and you had to very secretly check what you've done. Have you ever let a boy touch you? Was it over your pajamas, under your pajamas? Did you ever, and then that escalated to in college, where we'd list, how many boys did you sleep with? Was it over 10? Was it over 100?
I think that what we should have done, which we didn't do, is use scorecards with those.
Right.
75. Can you rank them by height, by IQ, by, can you just by any other quantitative methodology that you might want to, but that's not, because God knows the fraternities,
terrible.
Who was easy and who wasn't. And that's it, that somehow it's getting back to the idea of women as commodities, that women have expiration dates, and that once again, that you go bad after your expiration date is up, you go bad. But that, in a way, and there are all kinds of cultural studies about this, that's when you do go bad, when women get sort of evil. That's why the witches and everything were also always associated with age. It's like once women become postmenopausal, basically once they're outside the marriage market, right? Then we say whatever we want. Then we get really scary. because then we got nothing. Yeah, I mean, I can say whatever I want because I am not trying to please you. And power, as Elizabeth Janeway said, power is the ability not to have to please.
That's
And if
right.
women have given away our power because we think the only way that we get anything is like, oh, they like me. And it's like,
Oh God,
no,
they
not
like me
because
thing. I
they like
hate
you,
that.
it's because you're so good at what you do. You are not chosen because they like you. It's because you're efficient, you're effective, you're smart, you know what you're doing, you make somebody's life better and more interesting. It's not because they like you. They're not doing you a favor.
That's right.
Faye Weldon was a great author. A friend of mine was in her last piece she ever published was in the first book, was in Fast Funny Women. But she wrote a great short story called Ind Af, for Inordinate Affection, based on a Hawthorne short story. And it's about a girl, 20-year-old girl who runs off with her 45-year-old teacher for like a weekend, for a research weekend. And she's like with this guy, and it's not the same to be with the teacher when he's not in like a teaching situation, and she's, he's sort of like middle-aged and a little creepy, and not like what he is when he's standing up in front of the class and is this admirable, desirable figure. And as he's talking, she realizes in one wonderful line, and it shows you what an author, what a great writer does in one line. She said she realizes that it's not that students who sleep with their teachers get A's, but the teachers only sleep with their A students.
Oh,
And isn't that a great recognition?
yeah,
Right?
it is. It
It's
is.
like, it's not that, it's you got the job not because somebody thought you were cute. You got the job because,
You were
it's not
smart.
because you're smart, not
You were
because you're
smart.
ingenue. We always try to make excuses for our success. Oh, I only got it because my aunt put me through to whoever. I only got it because I met somebody. I only got it. It's like, no, you got this because you're right for it.
Mhm.
You don't need
It,
to make an excuse for your success.
I also want to talk a little bit more about time because um, I've been I've been rewarding myself after a hard day of work. I'm rewatching the whole first season of Sex in the City, which was a
Oh,
zillion years ago. But no. It's really interesting because these women are making such, they're having terrible emotional traumas. But you look at it and you think, why did they do that? Why did they go back to that person? Why didn't they stand up for themselves and say, you know what, screw you? And things would have been better. And it's so I think it's important sometimes to watch stuff like that to realize, okay, so we have moved on, at least a little bit, and maybe
mhm.
we'll move on even more than that. Okay,
Right.
so do we have any last questions? All right, I do. Gina, what's obsessing you now and why?
Obsessing me, oh God, everything. I'd see, I started teaching again. It's my
Oh, that's great.
36th year at UConn. I'm 66 years old and I'm still have my day job. And I'm grateful for it. I still like the students when it starts to bother me more than it delights me, I'll stop doing it, but I still get a kick out of it. I still find them interesting. And I'm teaching, a creative writing class and a modern British literature course. And
I'd love
so
to take that.
it would be great. We should all do them, once.
Yeah.
I should do it without grading. It would be fun. And you teach writing, and you know how
I do.
involved you get
You
in.
get involved in your
Right?
students' lives. And well, I teach creative writing, so I don't grade them at all,
You
even
don't.
though they want me to. UCLA wants me to, but I feel like it's creative writing. It's harrowing enough for people without having the letter grade over their
Right.
heads.
And that's it. I mean, their grade, which it takes a lot not to do well, because for me it's doing the work, and they have to write most weeks, and they have to critique each other's writing every week, and so that's like the real heft of the grade. And so Mary Lasley, who has been doing these wonderful videos, and was in the creative writing class last semester, and Laura Rossi was in a creative writing class when I was starting out at UConn, and the the great continuity between the creative writers all along, and many of them are in the book, have been, it's been fascinating to see. And I'm going back. So like, I'm looking forward to seeing what they write. One of the first prompts is, what is a song that you adore, like that you sing along to immediately, but that's really embarrassing?
Oh my God, there's so many of them. Oh my
Exactly. And so,
God.
I love what turned out to be like all, like the
What's yours? What's yours?
it's all the preying on young girls songs. This young girl, get out of my mind, go away, little girl.
Lightning strikes twice.
Right, exactly. That's a great one. But the other one with John Sebastian singing like
A younger girl. What about Wives and Lovers? Hey, little girl, fix your hair and your makeup.
Exactly. And I'm 66 and I'm going, go away, little girl. And I'm thinking, I signed up for Social Security last year,
But when you were young, when you were a teenager, when you heard that, didn't you think, oh, it's so romantic? A guy wanting me to leave so he won't rape me.
Exactly. And I loved those songs, but here what really so I'm looking forward to hearing those, and I will listen to the songs. I'm sure I won't know many.
That's a great prompt. I know those songs. Lightning Strikes is good. There's another one, Hungry Like the Wolf, which is horrible. This guy is on the prowl for you.
Or Little Red Riding Hood.
Oh yeah, Little Red Riding Hood. Yeah.
That's another one.
Yeah, and I thought like, oh, it's so sexy.
And he's taking the sheep.
All right, so we need to end. I want to thank everyone this was great because we had so many audience questions that I love. And I love talking to Gina. I haven't even gone through most of these questions, which is also great because I'm going to be interviewing Gina again tomorrow night at Warwick's. So tune into that. That is at 7 Eastern time, I believe. Yep.
Yes, that's right.
And it's going to be even more fun. So tune in. Go to bookshop.org and buy the books. Buy all of Gina's books. They're wonderful. And what else do I have to say? Okay. And we'll see you all next week. And I want to say bye to everybody except for Gina. You have to stay on. So goodbye. See you all. And thank you, Laura, for coming.